What's up, hackers? Welcome to Chill Code. My name is Taggart, and tonight we are doing an AMA, as we've done before on Wednesdays, even if not a lot of folks hang out, but that's okay. So anyone who wants to have a conversation about tech, cybersecurity, programming, career choices, things like that, the phone lines are open. But in the meantime, we're also working on this game in Python here. We are basing this game, which is going to be a text-based adventure, on Black Hills Information Security's Backdoors and Breaches. Control Byte, good to see you. And so, to get started, I'm adding a couple of extra cards here into our card database. And to help me do that, I've created a nice little helper function inside of my interactive Python shell. And there it is right there, make card. So basically, go back to my studio view here. So basically what we have going on here is we take in the card type, title, and text, and we're just returning a pretty printed JSON dump of the result. Nothing too fancy here, but I think it's a nice little helper for what we might end up doing. So for example, you can see I made the card here, persistence, malicious service, and then I get this card type back. And it's real easy to add new cards here. So I'm going to add another one here for a card. So we'll do phishing. Actually, it is initial compromise, right? We'll do fish, burish. Tiny Witch Draws, welcome aboard. Good to see you. That's enough for now. I don't need to have the full description. Starting off the AMA, staying on the topic of Python. Oh, cool. How do you go about structuring, setting up a programming environment, handle cord organization? Using Venvs as well. Yes and yes. So it really depends on how formal the project is, at least in my case, Control Byte. On this one, I'm trying to do it like everything right, with the potential exception for the moment of test-driven development. I haven't built out any tests yet, but I probably will. You just finished finals, Tiny Witch. Congratulations. I'm very glad that you're done. I'm sure that you did a great job. I know that feeling. But yeah, so virtual environments, yes. So I've used Venv and, Python, virtual env and all the stuff that you're supposed to do with Python. And it's all not good. So I have taken, that's my Rust stuff. Hang on a second. Let's bring up a new window here. Get rid of the Rust stuff. I have taken to using Python poetry, which I will put here in the chat. And what's great about poetry is that it kind of does everything that you need to do for package management in Python, from virtual environments to setting up your code structure to packaging it to send up to PyPy. So real handy. You can see here, if you do poetry new, it just like builds this for you. Now, I didn't even run poetry new for this. I did poetry init to like cheat because I already had a folder, but it did, I have all this stuff ready to go, including the init.py, all this great stuff. Real easy to do. So I would recommend, if you're getting started or you just want an easier way to do it, poetry is the way to go. And plus, as an English major, I appreciate the intersection of poetry and code. All right, let's add, I want one card of each type, basically, just for testing purposes. Thank you, Pandemic Avocado. Use PyCharm. Yeah, so on the development environment front, Um, I'm a broken individual that doesn't use IDEs. I'll use... Can't have lyrics going on. I'll use VS Code if I want something with actual, code completion or hinting or linting. But otherwise, I spend a lot of time in Vim, to be honest with you. I do a lot of my programming in WSL and in Vim, which I have set up with a whole bunch of, plugins to help me out. And that works. That's enough for me. And I spend most of my time in the terminal too. So basically what you see here on in this window is essentially what I would set up in Vim. It's just that VS Code is replacing Vim on the left-hand side. PyCharm is great. There's nothing wrong with using PyCharm. Use it forever. It's totally fine. My challenge, I think, was that the first language I ever learned was Python, really. Well, PHP, really, but then Python more seriously. And let's ignore PHP. Python, and then I got really serious into web development, so I did a lot of JavaScript. I did Angular, React, all sorts of stuff like that. And then I kind of moved into other programming languages like Rust, and started doing C out of necessity, although I do not like it. And also weird stuff like Haskell, which I deeply love, or Racket. And because I've collected so many different languages, settling on a single purpose IDE was very difficult for me. So I found using VS Code or Vim with the right plugins to be a really kind of flexible solution. And I kind of just like set up the editor however I want, and then I use a side-by-side terminal window to handle like Git stuff or running tests, whatever else I need to do. And, that's how that works for me. But, everybody's tooling is going to be a little bit different. I mean, I've seen people do amazing things in Notepad, It's the tool's a tool. It has to do what you want it and how you want it. And after that, don't go in for any of the dumb editor wars. Really, in most cases, the language wars too. Python's great, so is Ruby. Everybody has their preference, but tribalism is dumb. A little copy pasta here. Look at that. Got started using P5.js to make things. Boy, I haven't thought of... Shout out to P5.js. I haven't used P5 in a long time, but I used to give P5 to my students, and they loved it. They loved it. It was a great way to get started with programming. I actually like P5 a little bit more than raw processing, one, because it's not in Java, and I have issues with Java, but also because, I don't know, just the web technologies, that's my kind of hot take for education. I feel like Python is cool, but one of the great things about the HTML, JavaScript, CSS stack, even if you're teaching it to younger students, is that it's so much more immediately rewarding because you can just like reload the HTML page and immediately see stuff working. It's really, really rewarding for students of all ages. All right, let's do a C2 pivot and escalate here. Let me check my card types to make sure that I'm defining these right. Yeah. Did I forget initial compromise? I did. Well, that's dumb. Let's just make that then. And let me record that change. All right, move back over. Nope, I don't need the README open. Out of here. And so what I was originally checking was pivot escalate is the string here. So we'll make the card, and it'll be pivot and escalate. And I believe what's the card I have open here? Kerberoasting. And quick description. Actually having a little bit of a tough time with Python trying to find image visual packages that work. I thought it'd be fun to try my old... Oh, wow. Yeah, there is a processing.py, but I don't know how well maintained it is. There was also, I mean, God. This was, and this is actually my problem, right? When you're starting to learn Python, right? You learn all the stuff, you do like Turtle, I guess, if you're doing graphical stuff. But then once you're ready to do GUI stuff at all, it's like a massive leap in complexity. And if you use tkinter or, you know, TCL or whatever, it's a nightmare. Let me see if I can find... There are a couple of libraries that I have used that make it a little bit saner. And actually, one thing that I'm thinking about right now is Replit came out with this thing called Kaboom. Is this gonna help us out? So Kaboom is more, okay. This looks more JavaScript-y than, yeah. Basically, it's their game engine. But I remember there was also, like, Pygame, right? Okay. Well, let's see when the last time Pygame was released. 6 days ago. So Pygame's being actively maintained. And yes, it's a game engine, but it is also, you know, a graphics engine. So there are a few things in here that can really help. Yeah. It depends on what you're doing. Like, if you're thinking about graphics and animation, Pygame will be a really solid one. Yeah, no problem. For a GUI, it's not as good. There is another thing, let's see, Python GUI, without having to deal with... It was like Kivy. There it is. So I never got off the ground with this one, but if you're looking for a GUI library, I would check out Kivy. Pretty cool. So let's see if there's like a first app with Kivy. Okay, that's not the greatest screenshot ever. So Kivy, you can do games too. And the trick with Kivy is that, much like a lot of other GUI libraries, is that it has its kind of own UI descriptor. And the reason why I like this, even though it means learning a new syntax, is that it gets the design of your UI out of your business logic in your code, which is always a problem I have with things like TK, or even if you're doing like GTK or like Qt, unless you're using the QML, language to define your UI, then you have all of this like design code for what your UI looks like interspersed with your business logic, and I find that very messy. This abstracts that out, and I like that a lot more. So yeah, lots of stuff out there. These are the things that I kind of have looked into. All right, let's add a C2 and exfil here. Okay, this is definitely the Star Wars theme, or it's Luke's theme. I'm down with it. All right, what's our C2 and exfil card going to be? HTTP as exfil. It's a good one. Okay, not the best description ever, but it'll work for now. It's funny. I've spent a long time. Tiny Witch, you got me on this topic now. I've spent a long time basically avoiding doing desktop UI programming because I don't know, kind of drives me nuts. I've done a couple of Electron apps so that I'm basically just writing web on the desktop, which is cheating, but it works out fine. One thing I'm really interested in, I'll probably do a stream on this at some point once I have a little bit more bandwidth to like learn new stuff, is depending on, you know, how you pronounce it, it would be Tori or Tauri, which I'm really hoping was named for the like the name for humans in the Stargate universe, but whatever. Think of it as Electron, but it is written in Rust. And so it's pretty quick and hopefully a little bit lighter footprint. And what it can do is essentially what Electron does, right? So developers can integrate any front-end framework that compiles to HTML, JS, and CSS. So you spin up, basically it spins up a little wrapper around a tiny browser and it renders the HTML and JavaScript. Real handy. So I'm excited to see how, especially how this would perform versus an Electron app. Okay. And we'll add an inject. Oh, this is a fun inject, especially right now. So this is going to be honeypots deployed. That is actually supposed to be the title. The card type is an inject. Kind of gotten into optimizing stuff as much as possible to my computer being an old Mac. I hear ya. I hear ya. And, you know, it's funny. I heard some opinion the other day where it's like developers should be forced to work on old hardware so that they can't get away with just eating as much memory as possible. And I don't know if that's right, but I do think that testing should happen on a bunch of lower end hardware or slightly legacy hardware, which, you know, major enterprise developers will do, but sometimes the indies won't. right, that's enough card transcription for the moment. That wasn't the most exciting part of this process. But now at least we have content to test with. I'm just putting cards back. It's funny, I've run a bunch of Backdoors and Breaches games now at work, believe it or not. And I've never done one at a real table. So I started full-time in security. I was consulting beforehand, but I started in my current job in security full-time 3 months before we went into lockdown. So, hadn't even broken in my office chair. Oh no, modeling needlessly high poly stuff for years. Oh no. Take that, GPU. I should probably, on the topic of 3D modeling in games, I should probably shout out my buddy Chris's project. If you're interested in, yeah, I mean, it's funded at this point, but pretty cool to pre-order this. If you're interested in turn of the century art, my buddy Chris is creating a game based on Little Nemo comic strips, and it looks pretty cool. The game mechanic is neat. I would say it's kind of Braid-esque. There's definitely like a character switching mechanic in the platforming, and the art is gorgeous. It almost is like Cuphead in its smoothness and its animation style, but it takes from McKay's. Yes, I will absolutely link it in the chat. And the one of the creators, Chris, who's my friend, Chris Totten, is a game design professor. That's a gig you can have now. And he before that he was an architect, and that's kind of cool. He's written books on using architecture and game design. None of which apply to this game. Alright, we've got our cards. So then, what's next? Let's check out our main here. So our game.py, we have our deal cards, right? So we had special procedures, right? Because the way that the game plays is that you deal a certain number of special procedures, and then you deal out the rest of the procedures, and the specials get a +3 to the roll. So the dealing of the cards, the first thing we do is find all the procedures. Yeah. I have a feeling this is going to have to be abstracted out, this right here. As a matter of fact, let's just do that right now. And I think that should probably live inside the card class, now that I think about it. That'll be a static method. Before I go any further, though, let's log out our... Okay. And so we'll do static method, and we're going to do def filter cards. Takes a deck and a card type. And we are going to return that. Okay, yeah, this is definitely a lo-fi version of This Is Halloween from Nightmare Before Christmas. I know that melody. We're doing Spooky Python, I guess. So, yep. And then we just have to change it to deck. And equals card type. Good. So with that done, we can, instead of saying this right here, we will change it to procedures equals card dot yeah, we've got it. Import card could not be resolved. Hey. This wasn't a problem before I turned Pylance on. You're looking right at it. That's annoying. I'm gonna restart VS Code to see if I can fix that. Still no. We'll see what's up there. Yeah, what's this about? Oh, okay. So there's a way to fix it. So apparently, settings, we change it to settings.json and we So it'd be /source, right? Note that the source scenario is automatically detected by the language service, so no one configures nice thing. So that actually shouldn't be happening. Unless let me delete this. I wonder if I'm inside the source file, if it knows what to do here. No, it doesn't. Interesting. And we haven't done anything with the init.py, and that might be why. But it shouldn't matter. Yeah, it still doesn't know how to handle source. Now, if I do from .card, does that work? Yeah, there we go. So that's an interesting idiosyncrasy. If you do a dot in front of the Python module, it defaults to looking in the local path, right? Or in the local directory. And so that solved the resolution there. Let's see if my auto reload is still working. So down here, I should have... Well, let's finish deal cards first, huh? So we deal out our special procedures, right? And then... So that should be good. And then what we'll need to do is... Let's just run it. Import error. Attempted relative import with no known parent package. Should be okay. New game. View procedures. So that looks like it's working. We got our special procedure is endpoint security protection analysis, and our normal is firewall log review and endpoint analysis. So that's working. Now, those are the 3 procedures that I made, right? And if I choose quit, every time with this song. Let's get to a different... Let's try this one. Okay, so if I try view procedures this time, if I quit and then run it again, Okay, so I'm getting different procedures every time, so the random draw is working correctly. Great so far. Now I need to deal in the rest of the cards. Now, right now, our game state is set up so that it's basically the kill chain, right? And we're not distinguishing between like the initial compromise, C2 exfil, persistence, pivot and escalation. We could. It may not matter. The other thing we need to think about is that right now we just have kind of a generic card class. But notice that I have a kind of a stub here for a procedure class. And that's because I know that different kinds of cards are going to need different kinds of information. Guess I shouldn't have put them away. But, you know, for example, let's take one of our initial compromise cards. There's a detection here, right? It has things that can detect it. And so, right there. And so I need to be able to determine whether the procedure will detect that particular card. So in order to make that difference, we're going to create kind of these subclasses here and handle the rest of what's going on. Oh, that should have been from card import card, right? Yeah. So we do cards equals card dot. There we go. Now I'm getting the autocomplete load cards. Now see, I'm getting card dot card, which is fine. But what if I wanted to make it a little bit more specific? So we'll create the constructor. Keep doing that. I keep pressing Control B instead of moving over to my other window. So here, we actually want to import everything now because we should have procedure, which we do, and we also have initial compromise. So I have cards though, right? So if I take cards 0, we'll try this. We'll do super with data. which should turn it into a card, and then turn it into a self-death detection. Okay, so we're gonna take this right here. And call it card data. What's wrong? Something wrong with my auto reload, but that's fine. I don't care so much about that right now. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do, if this works, let's go back to card. To create the initial compromise, we'll say comp equals initial compromise, and we'll give it card data. But of course, the problem was that there was no detections, so otherwise it worked. So I gotta add detections in here for the initial compromise, right? And that's going to be an array. The detections are server analysis. Now this is very fragile because it's all based on strings. So programmers, what are some ways that we could make this less fragile? What are some ways that we could guarantee the relationship between the procedures, whatever they are, and the detections in these other kinds of cards, so that they're not reliant on the strings that we've written here? Okay, so that works. We do comp.title. Uh-oh. So I didn't do the inheritance right, because it's been a while since I've had to do object-oriented programming. Oh, Python class inheritance. Let's go check it out. So I shouldn't have done that, huh? It has no docstring, but it's a comp dot. So it has detections, but yeah. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that those parents are in there. And scope containing derived class function in the place of a base class name. Yeah, so that's right. Do I have to override the entire constructor? Or can I do wait, can I do this? Can I do super? Can I do this within it? Yeah, I think that'll work. Let's try it. There it is. That's how we do that. Okay, so you can see that I now have text and title, but I also have detections. That's how that works, right? So you access the super class, right, and then you call its constructor, which turns it into a card, and then you do the rest of the things, and then it becomes an initial compromise card. And so that's how we'll do that. Now, interestingly, if we want to do that, one of the things we might think about doing is complicating our load cards method, because right now it's just turning them all into card, but that's not actually what we want. We might want to create a static method that handles it. I actually like that idea a lot. So we'll clean that up a little bit. But before we do that, we have to... And actually, this initial compromise card, it's actually a kill chain card. Let's say kill chain, because they're all cards, right? Because this will be usable by everything, right? C2, exfil. And if we need to make subclasses, we can. But all of the kill chain cards will have detections. So that part, which is the only really distinguishing characteristic from a logic standpoint from procedures, is solid. The only problem, well, it's not really a problem. We just have to add a little bit of logic. And then for injects, we haven't handled yet, but that's okay. We also haven't added any injects, have we? Wait, didn't we? We added an inject. Yeah, we did. So let's make an inject. And the inject doesn't really have anything different on it, so I think that's fine for now. Okay. Now let's try out the procedure class. That's not what I copied, is it? It says card, weird. It says that it's the card.procedure, but if I say proc.title, it says that it's fish. But it definitely isn't. What went wrong? Oh, that's the problem. Card data, it should have been proc data. Okay. 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 I made a mistake, but I'm not like losing my mind. All right, so we have these subclasses here. And see, like, even without doing anything with this class, it's just almost semantic sugar, because I'm defining a procedure versus a kill chain card versus an inject card. And if we need to specify this a little bit more, we can, but I don't think we'll need to, really. At least not for now. Okay, so now the trick is, when I load these cards from the JSON file that defines them, I can't just use card, I have to use the correct constructor for the card type. To do that, I'm going to write a static method that just handles that. And these static methods, you can see I'm almost using static methods more than I'm using regular methods and properties inside of the card class. And that's almost, for me, more of a namespacing issue. I'm using the class basically like a module, excuse me, to contain code that is logically associated. So I don't have just functions flying all over my code base. Yeah. We'll say. Now, this is one part of Python that I really don't like, which is I don't have a pattern matcher, right? I don't have a switch statement in Python, and I don't have like a match statement the way I do in Rust. So if I have like a number of predefined cases that I know that I'm going to have to deal with, and then I want to create a flow control structure for those different situations, I'm kind of, by the language's design, limited to like an if, elif, else situation. But screw that, because it's really, really ugly. There's a lot of points of failure for an if, elif. And let me show you what I mean. So I can write this with an if, like, if data card type equals procedure, or actually we do card dot this actually should be a class method, because we want access to the class properties. See? Now we have the procedure. So if the data is equal to class.procedure, then we will, return procedure with the data, right? Let's say elif data card type equals CLS dot, let's say inject, right? Return inject with the data. We do else return kill chain with the data, right? So that's one way to do it. And I mean, it's fine. It works. But it's a little kind of ugly to me. But there's another way that we can do this that's, I feel, a little bit cleaner. And we're gonna sacrifice just a tiny bit of memory for a little bit more compute. So what we would do here is create a constructors dictionary. And this is where it gets fun. I can use procedure as a key because it's already a string, right? Is this not going to work? The constructor name. That should work out okay. Pylance is having a problem with it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a problem. Let's try... We'll move this up. So now no matter what the card type is, I have a constructor to use. So the other, in case that doesn't work, I'm going to just comment this out. And so here, we'd say return data card type. We'll do CLS dot constructors. We'll look for the data dot card type. And we'll send that, whatever that function happens to be, we'll send it to data. Okay, so now I'm getting a straight up error where it says procedure is not defined. That might be... Alright, so that's not going to work. I thought I was really slick. Oh well. Never mind. For now, then, we'll stick with the if-else. And so instead of this return card, we'll return... now this is a class method. Because we want... we're running create card for all of the JSON data items. So that'll produce, hopefully, the right kind of card class for everything inside of. So we'll say cards equals card.load cards. Uh-oh. Oh, dang it. I forgot to add injections to the rest of the... Oh, man. All right, I'm going to have to do that then. That's fine. Do Kerber roasting. I'm not writing out UEBA. Money services. Wow, internal segmentation actually has a purpose? Who knew? Where's my persistence cards? There we go. Oh, good. There's only two. Malicious service and malicious... Yeah. There's just two. There's endpoint analysis and endpoint security. All right. Then what do I need for... Yeah, I need my C2 exfil. Infections. Just NetFlow. Great. Now, I could have done this as YAML, and I'm kind of wishing I had, now that it's all in JSON. But I can convert that later if I wanted to. That's not hard. Preferences. See? Now look. Our cards are the right class. We have procedures, we have kill chains, and we have an inject. Let's write all this out. Thanks, Tiny Witch. I appreciate it. It's okay to lurk. No problems there. Not git diff. I want git diff source card.py. Yeah, that's why I prefer JSON too. And I find indentation issues. He said writing in Python, but whatever. Okay. Yeah, we did a bunch of stuff in card, and then yeah, we'll just I freaked out for a second because I was on a lo-fi playlist and all of a sudden the Midnight showed up and I'm like, great, but why? Git commit add. No, I mean, it's fine. I love the Midnight. I was just surprised. If you can't tell, I'm pretty sensitive to music, which I think is a function of having been a piano player since I was 4. I'm like very, very susceptible to different tones and melodies and things like that. All right. So we have our subclasses working, and we have the deck loading. It's time to build the kill chain, right? Now that we can actually do that. I'm going to make a quick variable here for the kill chain just to make it a quick reference. So basically, initial, inject, pivot, P2. Persistence, not inject. Like, that's too many. Okay. And this is going to help us do the kill chain build here. Do I find imposter syndrome kind of common in people that write code? To be fair, okay. Tiny Witch, this is an important point. I want to foot stomp and emphasize as much as I can. Yes, imposter syndrome is very, very common. And I have found it's common even for people who went to school for it. I did not. And so when I got into tech for real and started speaking to programmers and like going to tech conferences, I really found a lot of that feeling. I didn't know how much I didn't know. I didn't know where my skill or knowledge level fell within the broader scheme. What I found out, and still have trouble internalizing, especially as I pivoted to security, is that everybody is experiencing that same thing to one degree or another. And I'll even go so far as to say the folks who really never experience that are delusional. Now, imposter syndrome is its own kind of delusion, right? But if you never have doubts about your capabilities, like, that's, to me, insane. How could you not? How could you not wonder if you've made a mistake? That's just good sense. Now, you don't want to be paralyzed by it, but at the same time, if you never wonder that if you made a mistake, if you never doubt yourself, you're probably arrogant. And as a matter of fact, one of my favorite bands from the 90s is a band called Harvey Danger, and they have a song where one of the lyrics is, pomposity is when you always think you're right, arrogance is when you know. And I always think about that. So yeah, imposter syndrome is very, very common. But I also think that it is a state of affairs that comes from fear and lack of understanding of where everybody else is, and we're all in that same position, right? We're all faking it until we make it. And where I have found some coping mechanisms, or not even coping mechanisms, but mechanisms to get past that hurdle, um, is to, if I can, put myself out there and show both what I know and what I don't know. But I am also sensitive to the fact that it's much easier for me to do that as a white male. I'm going to get a lot more latitude and a lot more leeway than other folks. But, I don't know. I think that if you find somebody who is going to attack you for not knowing something rather than trying to teach and support in a way that's welcome, that's not somebody you need to be associating with if you can avoid them. I'm glad. Yeah, no problem. I don't know. I get really annoyed by the attitude of tech bros where it's like, well, we know something that's slightly complicated, so we must be geniuses. No, no. I think of programming really as a trade. I think of it like carpentry and plumbing. You're in a grad program for design and technology. That's really cool. I do wish that I had done some formal education in this stuff. When I was an undergrad, I was an English major, and I was never, in high school, I had not been encouraged by my math teachers or my science teachers. They were like, you're gonna be a writer. We don't care about you. You can bounce your way through our class without trying. And I didn't. And so I was convinced throughout my high school career that I was bad at math and science. And that was fine. I was like, I'll be a poet. And then I got to college, the same thing, right? I did the requirements for math and science, but I was a writer pretty much full time. And then, I'd always been interested in computers, but then, I graduated, and then I ended up getting this teaching gig where I was teaching technology, and, a switch flipped. And I was like, oh, if I use technology to interrogate these other fields like math and science, it's not that I was bad at them before. It's that I didn't have the tool, right? I hadn't figured out the language to parse this stuff in yet. Ugh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you ran into tech bros who are hyped about Bitcoin. I am not. I think cryptocurrency is essentially a dodge. And today actually made that super clear, where you had Elon Musk decide, I'm not a big Elon Musk guy either, even though I'm happy about private space. But he announced, right, that Tesla wasn't going to accept payments in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin tanked. And you know that both he and Tesla as a company sold off a bunch of it before that announcement came out, right? So what's that? That's insider trading. It's insider trading without a Federal Trade Commission to regulate it or investigate it. Let's comment this up a little bit. Yeah, that's exactly right. It would be insider trading. And that's independent of the environmental impact of cryptocurrency. Also, I have to tell you, the line, or one line you'll hear from the crypto folks is, well, it's not a fiat currency. It's not based on what a government has decided has value. Yeah, okay, maybe, but you've decided that hard cryptographic math has value. right? That's the fiat. That's the construct that you've agreed to. Yes, you're putting energy into it, but everything is a construct in an economy that isn't straight barter. Somebody asked me the other day what my thought was on, like, what the question was framed really presumptuously. It was like, what problems in cybersecurity do you think the blockchain can solve? And it's like, none? What about none? Because blockchain is a technology, is a distributed ledger, right? It's a distributed transaction ledger. That's what the blockchain is. That's independent of the cryptographic work that generates the currency. And so, like, I don't really see that the blockchain solves any problem that we have in cybersecurity. Like, maybe a supply chain thing where you could do distributed verification of like code commits or something like that. But we kind of already, that wouldn't stop supply chain attacks. Yep, blockchain's a buzzword, machine learning, artificial intelligence. I'm interested in what ML and AI can do, kind of. But it has to be in very specific ways and very, very carefully trained. I've played a little bit with supervised and unsupervised learning, and I think my biggest takeaway was like how easy it is to get really, really, really wrong. Where if your data set is shallow, um, you'll build a fit model that doesn't actually represent reality. It'll just represent your model, and then all of a sudden you'll be making real world decisions that can have real impact on people's lives. So we'll need, yeah, I think we'll do this. Have the tech proposed straight Black Mirror vaporware. Well put. Well put. This is a lot of copy pasta. There's probably a better way to do this, but it'll work. This will work for now. All right, self.state. Yeah, this is a lot of copy pasta. And this is why we made the kill chain before as a variable, because I wanted to avoid this. There we go. There we go. This is going to be better. Yeah, I mean, again, I think that the math literacy in the United States, at least, is abysmal, and it has significant impacts on our lives. See the last 14 months, where people don't understand how exponential spread works, or how herd immunity works, or any of those things, both mathematical and scientific literacy. It's funny, I when I was a teacher, there was a bit of a debate going on in the K-12 universe around, should we replace calculus in 11th and 12th grade in the United States with statistics? And I was a fervent believer in yes, you should. As a matter of fact, I would be okay with basically upending a lot of the high school math track. Or do calculus in a more conceptual way, so you can like understand the concept of integrals. Geometry's fun, but I feel like geometry also may be misplaced. Because it's this weird year, right, where you're kind of like, you go through pre-algebra, then you start doing algebra, it's like, oh, just kidding, geometry now. Why? And then you like go back into pre-calc or trigonometry or whatever. And it's like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it's part of it, it's like, oh, well, you need to have all of this in preparation for calculus. Well, if you take calculus out of the equation, pun unintended, you could do a whole bunch of different stuff with the math sequencing that would be better for students. Yeah, I have some hot takes on the math situation in the United States because it failed me so hard. There we go. So that takes care of the kill chain. And I'm also just now realizing, let's save out that work in Git. Where are we on the... What do we do with the... Oh, yeah. It doesn't appear that anything actually changed in the README. I guess I added some lines. Hey, Ivory Jam. Let's be honest, the US teaches a lot of things wrong. I think it should focus more on how to learn rather than memorization of facts. Okay. If this were like 20 years ago, I think I might agree more. I will say that the pedagogy in the United States has really departed a lot of rote memorization. Um, I agree with you that that's not a good way to do things. And as a matter of fact, John Dewey, back in the turn of the 20th century, right, he was arguing in his progressive education agenda, he was arguing against rote memorization. And things have finally moved past that a little bit. And in part, Ivory Jam, it's because of the prevalence of technology. The human mind is really, really plastic, right? It's really malleable. And the truth is, with access to so much more information readily at hand than, you know, at least even I had when I was going to school, the way of thinking is totally different. Students now don't memorize things because they don't have to. They don't remember what things are very often. They remember where they can look it up. And that's okay, right? That transactional memory is totally acceptable. But yeah, I will say that by and large, I think that with some exceptions, that pedagogy has changed. Now, there's a lot else that needs to be improved, but the rote memorization is on its way out. That's cool. Teaching yourself calc. I did that one summer so I can read the math papers I'm interested in. Yeah, I did that. My goal was like to understand the Einstein field equation. And so I've bought myself a bunch of textbooks and just kind of went to work. How did it go? It worked. um, I also did a bunch of like Khan Academy calculus stuff, and I like basically do my own math homework. I do calculus problems at night until I understood what I was doing. And what I found out was calculus is not the hard part of calculus, really. It was calculus's challenge is that if your algebra fundamentals are not completely solid, you struggle through that part because you end up doing, before you have like all the shortcuts for like, oh, it's this kind of derivative or whatever, if you're kind of doing everything the long way, then you end up like doing a bunch of weird factoring. And if you don't know how to play that game very, very well, yeah, it's going to be difficult. What I found eventually is that when I could avoid the arithmetic with tools like Python and focus on the conceptuals of the quantitative reasoning, I did a lot better. Right? When I could understand when I needed to differentiate or when I needed to integrate or what I could use that data to arrive at, it was a lot better without having to worry necessarily about, you know, memorizing a formula. Ivory Jam, to your point, right? Memorization of the quadratic equation doesn't help me. Understanding how to apply it really does. Python and code make me like math again? Yep, me too. Okay. So we've loaded the kill chain. The next part, and this is a little bit of a challenge, is I gotta figure out a way to define the incident, right? Because we have all the cards in the kill chain, but we don't know exactly how to describe the incident for the player so that they can see what's going on. Before we get there, though, I think one last thing is that the kill chain also needs this. Basic OSINT bot hunting, find out Benford's Law, blew my mind. I'm not familiar with Benford's Law. To Google. Frequency of distribution of leading digits. Oh, fun. Law states that many natural occurring collections of numbers, the leading digit is likely to be small. In sets that obey the law, the number 1 appears as the leading significant digit about 30% of the time. Oh, wild. Freaky.